we have an agenda for this meeting, and the agenda for today's meeting is going to be different to what we usually do. We start with reminders, which is always good. I need to give you a taxonomy project update. So this taxonomy project discussed a little bit about that last month, but I have a little bit more info. We have some release notes of improvements we did this month. Obviously, there was some vacation in there too, so there is not as much release. So we thought it would be ideal to also discuss these two other things. We have a new feature we're working on. It's not in the release, so because the code is not ready, but I can show you what we want to do, what we are doing. And then I want to have your feedback if you think that will solve the problem. What do you think if we're going in the right direction? So basically, this is for duplicates. Sometimes people either make donations without logging in, using a different email address. We're not sure if it's the same person or not. So we have prepared something that is not finished, but I want to show you. And the last part is the discussion about reporting, where basically we want to talk with you about different reports that you need. So there's a number of reports that we have, and but we have been receiving feedback about, village leadership is spending sometimes preparing some reports that are not available. So we want to hear from you, what are the reports that seem more urgent, important, and if we can help you coding them. So if you have ideas for reports, this is a good time. We will be presenting some that we have already received, right? And then, yeah, just want to hear from all villages if what are the best reports we could be working on. So that's the plan for today. I'm gonna get started with reminders right away. And the reminders, we will do them quickly because you know this stuff already. There is a B2B hosted webinar next week, August 25th. So that's a Q&A webinar with Gary. There's a couple of resources that we always remind here. The training docs guide, which is the kind of how all our training docs are organized. The help center, where you can find answers online. And then there is a Slack, which is a conversation space among villages to discuss different things about it. Regarding next week's webinar is Q&A. So basically we're at your disposal to answer any questions you may have about Helpful Village. If you have questions, it helps if you can send them ahead of time because we can give it some thought. You can send them to this email address, which is hbusers@b2bnetwork.org. And that actually goes to Gary Franco, who's our national coordinator. Gary is also a board member of Jersey Village Senior Outreach near Houston, Texas. So he helps us put the questions together, organize them, and then we discuss with Gary to prepare the webinar for next week. This is a reminder of what the training docs guide is, and the help center where you can search any question you can have about a Helpful Village and probably find the answers online. Oops. Submit your request if you have a problem with the platform or a question. You can also use the help center to send the requests. There are two different areas where you can send us some feedback. The help center, you can search support requests when you have a bug. When you have an idea for improvement, please don't send it to that area because we need to make sure kind of that bugs are prioritized and solved first. But there is this other URL, which is ask.helpfulvillage, where we are happy to hear all improvement ideas you may have. And with all those reminders done, we can move on to the taxonomy project. We discussed about this a little bit last month. I was a little frustrated because it's very important, and I need to make sure that I explain it in the right way. So we have a visual presentation of the same concept about what it is, and hopefully it's more clear today. So we were working with the team about what would be the best way to explain this, and we came up with this idea. It's saying, what is the taxonomy's complicated word? And it's actually taxonomy is used in other areas too. So basically, we thought this would be a good parallel to explain the taxonomy we're doing for villages. So basically, it's just a bunch of plants that exist across the world, some palm trees. And actually, what's interesting is that these palm trees in different areas are called different things, right? So the palm tree in the left is called Mexican fan palm, where in Spain it's called the Washington colorada, because every different location gave it a different name. And then same thing for each palm tree. The Cuban royal palm is called Palma Real in Spanish. The English name for a pineapple palm is Palmera Canaria in Spanish. But in the end, it's the same plant, right? So what happened, what the scientific community ended up doing is that they define a universal name for that plant. And this is basically just the Latin or scientific description of the plant wherever they are in the planet, right? So it's Washingtonia robusta, and the people both in the US and in Spain, they know this plant by their universal definition of the plant, okay? And we want to do exact same thing with the village services. So villages provide services to their members across the country, rights, household, and other things. And villages give them different names to the same service, right? Some people call them rights, some call them transportation, some call them driving. Same thing for the household chores, etc. So we started working on this taxonomy project, which is something where also Capitol Hill Village has a big, played a big role starting it and leading it, where basically it's like, how can we have this universal description of villages, kind of the Latin name in a way. And basically what we do with that is the same thing. It's actually not these names, it's actually a code that would be a little different. I forgot to change this, but it's a code that is not even words, that would summarize and have the same description for all. And once we do that, the benefits of that is that we can run the stats per village, right, of what services are being done. This is an example with the palm trees that we were saying before, right? But then if we're using the universal names for all the village services, then we can calculate the number of services and the proportion of services and the impact of villages nationwide or regionally. So basically, using the taxonomy, we will have the possibility to basically run statistics about the impact of villages. The villages will still call their services in the same way, but basically it's easier to have a look globally. And when we do that, we will be able to demonstrate the village's impact per state, nationwide, and this would help you receive funding, grants, and donors, etc. So it's basically a classification of all the work that is being done so that it can be presented in a better aggregate way. And that's it. So basically, that's the new content I wanted to share with you about the taxonomy. We received some questions, so we think it's very important to clarify. We were trying today with this parallel of the palm trees. I hope that helps. This is kind of an example.
Manuel,
Chris,
be careful with your microphone. Evie has a question.
Okay, yeah, sometimes I put my hands on the mic and it doesn't help. Thank you, Chris. And Evie, if you have the questions, you're welcome to ask.
Thanks, both of you. I wondered, Manuel, are you pretty well settled on the label wellness? And the reason I'm asking is our funding, we have very robust funding for our startup of our villages.
Yeah.
And for the strategy from the funders' eyes is social.
Okay.
So I'm wondering if because I think in a lot of people's minds, wellness translates to public health and that sort of thing. I just wondered if social support might be.
So there are two things. First, I am not, so these things that came on top, it was an example. Actually, Parker was working on this. So it's actually for us, technically, it's a code. For me, it would look like this. Wait, here, you see on this table, it's like you have computer assistance. This would be how each local village is calling the service. And then there are some taxonomy aggregation layers, but for me in the computer, it's going to translate into IS04. Because I don't want to get involved into how people call things kind of with different names. Just want to make sure that, we can add up the numbers. So I agree with you. It's a very good question, kind of social versus wellness. We definitely want to help you keep any naming convention that works for your local village. So there's no change, right? So it's made in addition to any way you call your services locally, that we also have kind of this Latin denomination or this taxonomy code that allows us to add up the numbers. But for me, I'm not fixated on any wording, etc. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you, Abby. Chris, also, I'm not looking at the chat, so if you have something, you can bring that up. But I'll keep going for now.
There's another question from Pete Bardeas. Yes. Requesting to put the code on the server request, but we are not at that point.
Yeah, we're not there yet. So basically the point that we're doing here is that we are basically explaining where we want to go, but we're not there yet. But when, obviously the point is that services have their taxonomy codes. Thank you, Pete, for the question. Then why participate? I'm gonna go quickly on this one because we did some of this last week. First is that it helps quantify the large scale impact of villages. Get rid of when you have seen one village, you have seen one village, but basically speak for, for a collection of villages. Better reporting will allow additional government funds and grants, and then also allows for scientists to look at what's going on. Scientists are not necessarily interested in looking at what happens in only one village, but if they can look at what happens for tens of thousands of people, this is statistically representative. So basically it allows for an opportunity to have scientists look at villages and scientifically prove that villages are awesome. So we think science is super important, research is super important, and the taxonomy will contribute to that. So I was explaining here where we're going. The next thing is, what can you do about it? And actually the good news is that it's pretty simple. We are perfecting the taxonomy, kind of this classification, because villages have different services across the country. So we just want to make sure we have a catalog that covers everything that all villages do, right? So what we are asking for now is to add the authorization to each village to help, to allow us to share these service names with Capitol Hill, so that they are also, they are actually the ones doing the classification and categorization. But if you allow us to share that information is yours, right? But if you allow us to share it with Capitol Hill, well, then basically that helps build this catalog that will work for all villages. So if you have, we have many villages, I think it's around 30 or 40 villages that are already on board with this. If your village has not authorized, well, then you can get in touch with Christina and ask about the authorization process and stuff like that. And, we definitely want to have all villages that are using Helpful Village be part of this project. So, just let us know. And then we will enter the codes into the system when they're ready. You don't need to do anything about that because basically we know how you're calling your services locally and basically what would be the taxonomy code that applies. So it's not additional work for you. And then in the future, but it's not yet, we have a storm here. So just some noise, I'm sorry for that. And then in the future, we will come back to you and asking for the authorization, right? When we're ready to produce the aggregate numbers, etc. That's not what we're doing now. That's something that will happen in the future. And before we do that, we will go back to you and ask for these other different authorizations. For now, it's only the name of the services and the event categories that you have. And we are not sharing any of the numbers, how many people use those services, etc. That's for the future. Perfect. And this is, as I said before, if you have any questions about the taxonomy or the authorization process, you can contact Christina on this email address. So that's all we had for taxonomy.
Manuel, just 1 second. We have just a question for the taxonomy. Just asking if we're gonna see also the services from the past, not only on the future.
Yes. Actually, the taxonomy will include all services that happen or that are done or that could be done. So basically, we want to have the full classification. It's like the same thing for plants, right? Where we want to have the classification of all plants that exist or have existed. We want to do the classification for all services that exist or have existed. So yeah, the taxonomy should cover all services. Perfect. Okay, let's move on to release notes. So this is kind of the improvements of the software that we added. Some of these changes are already visible on your software, and some of these will become visible soon. But don't be surprised if you see some of these. Some of these were not mentioned also last time. So I wanted to let you know that we added some more fields to the member application form. So these are optional fields for your application form. You can choose to add these questions to your membership application form online. If you don't want to, well then, these application forms are editable, so you don't have to. But if you want to, you can ask home ownership questions. So if the person is, renting or a house owner, you can also ask people to put information about their pets. So we have realized and heard that pets are quite important for a lot of members. So you could, if you want, ask questions about, species of the pet, kind of name of the pet and stuff like that, date of birth of the pet. So that's now available in the application form. We have fields for personal interest and experience fields. For example, how long have you lived in the city? There are some that I really like. What are some of your interests, hobbies, and stuff like that? I think all those fields are important to build rapport with your members, and then potentially suggest them that they join some of the interest groups that your village has. So those are good fields. Special expertise and reference fields also, if you want to have people provide references for members, we added those fields optional to the application form. So not only to the application form, but when people fill out the application form, those will also go into the additional member tab, additional info tab of the user. And this is a few print screens about how they look. So you will see, if you go to any profile page, that you have a first pet and a second pet field, actually. And you can say that this is a dog, it's a German Shepherd, this is the name of the pet, this is the date of birth of the pet. And I'm sure one village somewhere is gonna ask me for a report about the dates of birth of the pets, and maybe we'll do it. So we're collecting, at this point, we're only collecting additional information from your members. So all these you can use. This is another improvement we did, is that we added some member data consistency checks. Now, consistency is kind of a weird question, but I'm going to explain. Basically, what happened is that you can manually manage information for your members, right? So we have a few print screens Christina added there at the bottom. So for each member, you can give them a member number, a status, membership type, and then primary or a spouse partner. So for your membership, you can have a primary member or not. First thing that I wanted to say, because I have had this discussion with some of the villages, the software doesn't make a difference between primary and spouse, right? So both can pay, it's not one that is dependent on the other, one that is the main. But some villages, for their own purposes, they want to have this label of primary member, because that's the way they work. I know there is also this one case where this village wanted to send in some notifications only to the primary, because I know they had kind of both the primary and the secondary partner, I think they paid for renewal of their membership. So for some villages, they want to have this difference of primary and spouse, but the software doesn't make any difference, and it's never shown. We never show never shown. The interface never shows it. We have the field, probably if you use it in the email templates, you can add it to your email templates, but basically our software doesn't use that field. You're not less of a member because you're secondary. For our software, for your village, it may be. Anyways, that was a long explanation. What I wanted to say is that you can manage those fields, but now we added some tests on our side. This is in the back of the database, so you don't need to worry too much about this. But because people could manage them manually, right, it was technically possible to put both people in the household membership as partner membership and having no primary. And that's kind of weird because that messed up our reporting on, number of memberships and number of household memberships. So now we added some tests in the back of the database where there needs to be one primary household member for our account. No, not more than one. And the other thing that we added is that the system is now checking that, because same thing, you can change manually sometimes the expiration dates and stuff like that. But we added some additional tests because that's kind of a weird situation. Where basically the system is going to scan that all members in the household membership have the same date, just in case someone manually changes something. So you don't need to worry about this slide. It's just basically we are added some code in the back of the database to make sure that your data looks great. And if we see some inconsistency, we will let you know so that you can have a look at that. Cool, perfect. So that's for the improvements of the month. Now we're changing to the new section of today's presentation, which is a duplicates features demo, right? So this is not yet developed. So what I mean is that we don't have, the code is not working, it's not gonna be on your server this month, but we're already working on this. So we're hoping that we can deploy this to the server next month. I think it will be ready. Before we code it, we just wanted to ask you for this, for your feedback. Now, what is this duplicates thing? Duplicates is essentially about users, right? what happens is usually you can have John Smith, right? That is maybe a person that is already in your database. Sometimes what happens is that if you have this John Smith is known in the database with johnsmith@gmail.com, let's say, but suddenly this John Smith went on the website anonymously, he made a donation, but instead of using that email address, he used johnsmith@hotmail.com, a different email address. Now, the system and the help of it, we don't know if it's the same person, because John Smith, they can really be two different people that have the same first name and the same last name. So what we're doing is that we create two records in the database, assuming that maybe they're different people. Now what happens, and the villages know this, that usually village leaders get to know pretty quickly, oh, that's the same person, I know, because I talked to her, she made a donation, she was gonna do it, etc., or have the same address, etc. So we have received this improvement idea about how can we help villages merge these duplicates or detect these duplicates, and this is the demo that I'm going to show right now. And in order to do that, I need to get out of this and open up this demo here. Okay, so thunderstorm outside scares me. Okay, so basically we have this duplicate detection. We have some explanation here that when doing when that happens. And basically, in order to help you clean up your users, we're going to add this functionality to your website. And there are two different things. The first one is this one, detect duplicates, and the other one is clean up users. I'm going to start with detect duplicates, right? If you click on that, we can have the software. What we're thinking is having the software search people that have the exact same name and the exact same last name, right? So basically here, the system would automatically come here and say, well, there's a Cristina Acevedo that has this email address. We also have another Cristina Acevedo that has this other email address. We have another Cristina Acevedo with this other email address. And basically, if you know, right, that these two people are the same people, you can come in, click this checkbox here, click this other checkbox here, and click on the button compare, right? You want to see if these two people are the same, or you want to merge them. So basically, you click on compare. And when you click on compare, it's going to put side by side these two records that we have in the database. So it's going to say, it's going to be on the left, we wanted to put the profile we want to keep, right? And the duplicate profile. So we will make a suggestion of which profile is more complete. And then you will be able to merge this information. First here, we want to put side by side, this is Cristina Acevedo with this email address, with this date of birth, with this local village, with this ethnicity, etc. Sorry, Cristina, you muted me, I think. So basically, what happens here, if you see an information where this date of birth is exact, and for some reason this has a different date of birth, it's like, well, basically we keep this one. But in this case, assume that that this is the phone number that you want to keep. Then you click on the button to put this phone number on the, so basically in green here, you have the values that you're going to keep on this profile, okay? In this case, what we're doing is that we're replacing values. So we're basically overwriting what we had here. So basically the date of birth would replace, do we want to keep the one we have, or we want to replace it with the one we had here? So these replace values. In some cases, not about replacing. For example, most of the time when we have a duplicate that has been created, it's because someone made a donation or registered for an event. So the way we wanted to present this is basically have a list here of each one of the profiles. Here, for example, this person donated $135 on this day. Okay, perfect. But also we detected that the second duplicate profile did a donation of $150 on June 5th. And then basically you have the possibility to click on this button and say, no, okay, I want to transfer this donation that was on this duplicate profile, I want to put it in the main profile, right? There's another case that is interesting here. It's the same thing for event participations. Here it was, we're kind of showing an example where basically the person could be registered twice, one with the right profile and another time with, basically with this duplicate profile, because maybe he went online and registered with a different email. So basically this allows you to put everything on the profile that we want to keep. Everything we keep would be in green. And when you're doing comparing and moving stuff, just click merge, and then basically that puts this profile with all the information you want, and then basically archive the duplicate. I'm gonna do a little pause. I have more stuff to show you, but here I want to ask you for your feedback. If anyone that has been watching this sees, I mean, has had a duplicate case or has a question or something about the way, or a suggestion about the way we're planning to manage this, this is a good time to, you know, just unmute yourself and let us know your feedback or your ideas.
Mm-hmm. If they were really two different people, you just go along, right? And they stay. I mean,
you're right. I like your question, Susan. It can be, you know, the reason why we're showing you both and not doing it ourselves is that maybe they are not duplicates. Maybe they are two different people, and if they are not, you know, maybe what we should do is, rather than merge, say, well, these are two different people, and then, you know, if you're two different people, the system will not do anything about it. So I like that question. I think we should have two buttons at the bottom. It's like, these are two different people, don't do anything.
Well, you may want to make a distinction. For example, we have father, son, and grandson with the same name.
Yeah.
You may force the admin to say, oh, this is John Smith Jr., or this is John Smith III, so that their names are clearly distinctive.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, in terms of, I like the feedback, Jim. Now, I was trying to think at the same time, how would it show here on the interface?
Well, you would raise the question to the user. This is cleanup, but you have the first entry problem. So I'm a member, and all of a sudden I donate, and I don't use James Ludden, I use Jim Ludden.
Yeah.
Now you need to be able to find a way that those two records are similar, and say, oh, we have somebody similar in the database. Is this who you're really talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, no, yes, okay, well, we'll use James Ludden, even though you thought you were Jim Ludden. And we have a bunch of those.
Yeah.
For example, I have 5 emails. All those emails are valid emails, but you may say, okay, which one do you prefer? Now that's what you're doing in this cleanup.
Yeah.
So part of the problem comes with administrative cleanup after the fact, and the other problem comes with user acknowledgement of a similarity. And that could be a donor, a person who's in the mailing list, they want to become a member or a volunteer. It's a different problem, and it requires a slightly different solution.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great feedback, Jim. I think if I summarize, I see 2 points that are different. One is, yeah, as you said, my dad's name, I mean, we do this in Hispanic families a lot. It's is also my first and last name. And we should maybe have a way in the database to say, yeah, I know, you know, they have the same name, but they are, you know, this is father and son or something like that. So we'll think about that, because it's hard to find a solution right away. And then the other thing is, for the secondary emails, I think we need to do something where, you know, yeah, we detect, even if you used a different email address, that we detect that it's still the same person or something like that. Perfect. I like that. Chris, if you can make a note of those 2 things that we said, and I'll keep talking, but that's the kind of feedback that we wanted for the meeting.
I don't know how you can detect a secondary email for the same person, but when I come across that, I ask the person, which one would you prefer to use for our village? And I make a note under the notes tab that this person also has a secondary email.
Good, it's good.
It's not used, but it's available there.
Yeah. Now, what I'm thinking is, that most of the duplicate, I think, that happen is because they're using different email addresses, right? So, and it's totally okay. What I'm thinking is that maybe here in the interface, we can say, okay, this one is using this other email address. Let's not replace it, but maybe let's add it as a secondary email, right? And then if we have associated to this person these secondary emails, and the next time someone comes in and registers for an event with a secondary email, we still know it's the same person. So I think we can do something. Actually, that's a great point. Christina, if you can make a point of, another note about that.
taking
That is
notes.
that if someone, if we can add the email of the duplicate as a secondary email of the first person, and then if this person is donating in the future or registering for an event in the future, not only we will check the main email, but also the secondary emails to know that it's the same person and therefore not create a duplicate profile.
Yeah.
And the next thing that I was gonna say is that some of the things seem simple, but in the end, we really need to think through, because sometimes some people share email addresses, so it's not necessarily a a unique identifier of the person. But we will give it more thought offline. But it's yeah, I mean, it's a great point. The other thing also that I want to let you know is that there is already a secondary email field. So if we go here, Manuel. I messed up my demo because now it went away from us. That's okay. So I need to go back to that page somehow. Here, if you go more, this is a little hidden because kind of fields that are not used as often. There's the bio, and here you have one of these fields. It's a race, ethnicity, gender, and then secondary email. You can already add one here. But we probably, I'm gonna see when we're thinking about this in this merge thing, is we need maybe to. I mean, Jim has 10 email addresses, so there's no reason why it would only be one. We could do more than one. So, but we need to think about the best way to do it. But this is exactly what we wanted with this discussion. Get your feedback, and all those points is something that needs to be integrated when we're doing the code for this topic. So this I'm loving this meeting. It's great. If someone else,
Manuel,
yes.
This is Lisa Melgard. The same thing would be true for phone numbers. To the ability to move over and add a phone number instead of replacing the phone number would be important.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Yeah, Chris, if you can make a note also about that one, secondary phone numbers. Yeah, we thought first about the email because the email address is what is being used, to know if it's a duplicate or not.
Right.
But definitely phone numbers is a very similar process, and we definitely want to capture that other phone number. So that's a good point. Like that.
The other one might be name, like if it's James or Jim or a nickname.
Yeah, it's a good question. That I would return the question back to you, Ray, and all of you. It's like, maybe we should, here we have first name, middle name, and last name. This would be an opportunity to add kind of a nickname but I want to hear back if someone sees a problem adding that field, but I think could potentially be a good idea. Does anyone see a problem in adding a nickname field in there? Maybe not.
Well, maybe a preferred name and a nickname.
Wait, can you repeat that?
Yeah, thanks. A preferred name and a nickname, possibly.
Well, that's interesting. But then the thing is,
and I say that because we have people who will be joining the villages, presumably, who have a formal or legal name, but they have a name that is one name that they are known by and that they're called.
And that is not, So what you're saying is that let me rephrase what you said to see if I understand. You would add a nickname, right, field, so that you have this other opportunity to enter it. And then you still want to know what I'm asking is that, is the preferred name that you're saying, is that different from the nickname, or?
I think it depends on the individual. They might say, that's my nickname.
Wait, so
someone might say, that's not my nickname, that's my preferred name.
Wait,
it's similar
talking
to
about names that have been given to people by their friends.
okay.
Like Biggie instead of, that would be a nickname, right?
Okay.
But the preferred thing has to do with how it's very similar to preferred contact method. Preferred name. The contact methods, email, phone, whatever, are all parallel. And then the user picks one that he wishes you would use. That doesn't mean if I'm James and I have a nickname of Jim, I don't have a preference, but I'll answer to both. Some people like Meredith is called Meredith. Her formal name is Meredith, but her nickname is Meredith, and she prefers Meredith.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have two parallel fields, and then they specify which one they prefer you to use.
That's exactly my question, Jim. Actually, that's what I wanted to ask, right? And this is, as you said, I think the problem with the phone number is interesting, because here you have cell phone, and then here you can say, well, I want the cell phone to be my preferred phone number, right? Or I prefer my landline. If you don't check it, this would be my preferred one. So my question back to Evie that had started the conversation is, I wanted to know if it was just a vocabulary thing, if she preferred name compared to nickname that mean two different things, or if it is, well, we add nickname and then you have the possibility here to choose, well, I want to be addressed by my nickname, or I want to be addressed by my legal name.
I guess I'm thinking about it from the, like, how do you self-identify, what somebody's preferred name is. Like, someone says, call me this. So maybe the field should be called preferred name rather than nickname.
I agree.
So wait, just give me a second, because I want to make sure I understand. And then Jim, this goes back to you. So what we're saying here is that, Evie, if I understand, so you would call the field you would not call it nickname, you would call it preferred name. Is that right?
I think that might be a better
okay. Yeah. So
name.
yeah.
But then, Manuel, you know how that when you do a report, like for members and it says what fields you want included, you would have to include preferred name, regular name.
Yeah.
And somehow it would be good if you could, like, if somebody wants their letter, for example, me, addressed to Margie, not Marguerite.
Exactly. This is where Jim's contribution was interesting to me, which is like saying that, okay, I have both records on my profile, both fields in my profile, right? It's my legal name and my nickname or preferred name, and I would like to be addressed on this one. For example, in the email templates would be, we could have kind of some sort of checkbox here, say, well, use my nickname for, or use my legal name for when you are addressing. So that's it. So basically, Jim, I think I understand, and we would be going for both things, kind of some sort of checkbox saying, well, you want to use your legal name or your preferred name. And basically, the other thing that we need to be clear on is that Evie prefers that we don't use the word nickname, and that we use preferred name. I'd like to hear from other people, because nickname in a way for me is just self-describing. Immediately you understand what we're talking about. Preferred name can be a little bit more challenging. But I'm not, my English is not as good, so I don't know if preferred name is clear for everybody.
I have a problem with preferred name as well as name.
Yeah.
Same problem I have for phone and cell phone. If my phone is a cell phone, do I record it twice?
Yeah.
If my preferred name is my legal name, do I have to put it in both times?
Yeah.
Nice, yes.
See, if we put in legal name and nickname, they're clearly distinct. Or I may not have one.
Yeah.
I may not have a nickname. And then you say, okay, which of these do you prefer?
Yeah.
Now here you see, you've duplicated the problem. You've said cell phone is primary, and immediately below that you say preferred contact channel.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Cell phone should be one of the preferred contact channels.
You're right.
I'm just trying to simplify things.
Yeah. First, I think this field came later, so we added it. But I think you're right. I think we should just take advantage of these. It's not totally duplicated. It's a little bit duplicated, but not entirely. Because if you want to be contacted by email in primary, we still want to know that you prefer your cell phone to your landline. You see what I'm saying? There are two levels of preference: one for among your phones and overall. But anyways.
But your website doesn't have a landline.
My website doesn't have a landline.
Right,
Wait.
it doesn't.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Phone
Phone is a landline, yeah. But
so you got to be clear and consistent everywhere.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we idiots get confused.
Who are the idiots? There are no idiots in this meeting. They were not invited.
Manuel?
Yes.
To go back several steps, I realized that if I was dealing with a duplicate, I don't know how you get to that place of resolving duplicates or what happens.
It's not
I need to review that.
Great question, Susan. I said before, it's not ready, right? It's not in the release.
Oh,
So the
Okay.
point was because I know that it was not a contentious issue, but basically, where there is some complexity associated, if we are doing some co-design today, so that we can.
okay.
With
So
all this-
you will let us know how to
Yeah.
draw on this feature when it's ready.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And what we're doing today is kind of before we go into
And
coding,
well-
detect kind of the challenges. Yes.
So are people saying they want to have a legal name, a preferred name, and a nickname field?
No.
No.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
good question, Carol. This is why I wanted to go over it several times because it's the whole challenge. So no, it's like the question was if the nickname should be called nickname or preferred name, but it's only one field. See what I'm saying?
Okay, all right,
But
yeah.
I think if we call preferred would be a challenge because I think it's a good question what Margie said before. When we are addressing you, right? If we want to have the email saying today, I think it says, for example, the volunteer email, right? Would say, hi, Margaret, right? But if we have this other checkbox saying, well, the person prefers to be addressed by their nickname, the email will say in the future, hi, Margie, which is better, I think, right? If the person decides so. If the person has a nickname, but they don't want to use it or they don't want the system to use it, they will have the option to do that. So that's why we would go with nickname then. But yeah,
Preferred name.
Preferred name.
preferred
Interesting.
name. Well, the
I
thing
mean,
with
to me, it makes sense to have your legal name or your, like for me, it would be Connie Kaptanian or Constance Kaptanian. But if somebody, if I had a preferred name, if I went to, or I think, Kathleen or Carrie would be, or Kathy would be a good example. So if somebody's name was, legal name was Kathleen, but they preferred to go by Kathy, that would make sense to me. And that, a nickname to me is something that somebody else gives you and not necessarily what you want to be called, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, it's a great point, Connie. This is why I am asking about this, because sometimes the subtle signification of the word nickname to different people, and just to me, it's wanted to be clear.
To me, a nickname is not the difference between James and Jim. It's the difference between Jim and if somebody gave Jim a nickname of Slugger. Yeah. There would be three choices. And would Jim really prefer to be Slugger or Jim or James?
Yeah.
A nickname is different to me than a preferred name, I think. But
well, the challenge with preferred is that these are discussions, so I'm just thinking aloud. But basically, if we have preferred name, what I wonder is if people would end up doing, for example, in my case, right, is Manuel, and then do I need to go in and type in Manuel again? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Is then they were typing twice. So that was kind of the good thing about nickname, which is, well, hey, if you don't have a nickname, you don't put anything in there. But I get your point, Carol, entirely, right? If nickname is not, and maybe there's a different word than nickname, which is, I don't know, Jim, how would you describe, when you say Jim, do you say it's your nickname when you, to share that with people? How would you say that? Or Jim or anybody else, but I know Jim has that.
Jim is my nickname. It's not my legal name.
Yeah, because Carol was saying that nickname was a kind of a given name by other people,
Well, maybe not. I have a friend whose legal name is Peter. Okay. The Latin Peter means rock.
Yeah.
So his family called him Rocky from the time he was born.
Yeah.
So is that a nickname? I mean, he goes by Rocky, even though his legal name is Peter.
Sure. Yeah, but the thing it would be, so in your opinion, Rocky would be his nickname, is what you would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also his preferred name.
But we could also say, it's his preferred name.
I mean, you don't care what his legal name is. All you need to do is address him in a way that he acknowledges that that's who you're talking about.
Okay.
And that other
Now-
people recognize that that's the person you're talking about.
But the reason that you end up with duplicates is because when people go to make donations, they enter their legal name because that's their credit card name. And that's where we get confused because we've already written down the name they go by all the time. But in this case, they're using their legal name.
But that's
where,
point, Susan, but I think, we will store both values in the database, right? So we will have Rocky and Richard in the database. So we could even use, scan the database for both first name and if he's making a donation for some reason with with a nickname, that we can detect it. So the detection we can do. Now it's just what we're discussing right now is basically mostly the kind of the labeling, how to call the field, right? Because there is one challenge with preferred is that I was wondering if, I'd assume that if we're sending an automatic email, kind of the volunteer email that we were saying before, Margie said before she would prefer that she would be addressed by Margie, right? Which is this nickname or preferred name. But I was wondering if some people would prefer like, hey, no, you send me this email with my email name because, there is an expression in Spanish that said we didn't grow we're not raising pigs together. You see what I'm saying? It's like, it's not because we have the nickname that the system would always use the nickname. You see what I'm saying? I wanted to ask if we should ask people if they prefer to be addressed by the system by their nickname or by their legal name. What is their preference? In the same way here, we ask people, well, do you want us to address you with, the system to address you by your phone number, to your phone number, to your cell phone number? Anyways, the thing is like, it's not, maybe we're overcomplicating the thing. I think we got the main point is that I think we all agreed that it's a good thing to add an additional field that has two possible names. One is preferred name or nickname. That is optional, that people can add. And then if there is one, we could potentially use that nickname on our preferred name in the correspondence, emails and stuff like that. So we'll go little by little. I think for next month we could add this field, and then we can discuss before, if we use it, how we use it, how is it showing for duplicates, etc. So I think we got mostly the point. Unless someone comes in and say, no, there should not be a field called nickname, that would be an issue. But even in that case, you don't have to use it. We just add it there for people that find it necessary. Okay, that was a good point. We can move on. I still have one more thing to show you. We're discussing about the duplicates, but there is another thing I wanted to show you. Well, first, there's a little more things also with, anyways, there's some other ideas we had for duplicates, but I don't want to go complexify the conversation more than that. There's another functionality we're working on at the same time, which is this detect duplicates. And we have another thing, which is clean up users or something like that. You're going to understand what this is. So we want to do an auto detection from the system about users that seem. So this is now, and there are some users in the database. Essentially, it's just these horrible bots out there, kind of spam robots that go out. And people that use kind of, a robot or spam that register for an event, and sometimes they have these super weird names, or sometimes people that made I don't know, a donation or something. I don't know why people do stupid stuff like that. I know why, but it's just a pain. So what we thought we would do is that we can write some code on our side saying, hey, these profiles look really weird. We think this is trash, and we don't want to delete them without you knowing, but we can show them to you, right? And give you enough information here and say, hey, this is the name, this is the email. You probably can go in here, check this checkbox here and say, no, okay, get rid of this is trash. You see what I'm saying? So we want to help you clean up your users database. The other thing I wanted to say is that some of these users in the database came in before we had the CAPTCHA feature, right? This CAPTCHA is the robot detection system that Google helps us detect if they think it's a robot or not. So I think we're getting fewer. Maybe there are some that are still coming in, so we're going to track that down. But basically, the main point here is that we are going to auto-detect profiles that look really bad, like this. I'm going to help you clean up those records from your database. So that's the other aspect we're working on. If someone has feedback about that, you can come in, but this one seems more straightforward. So, so that's it. That's it. So that's for these duplicate and fake users improvements we're working on. I want to thank you all for the feedback you have. If you have other ideas for feedback that you didn't have time to mention or think about, don't hesitate to send us an email, because we are kind of designing that part of the interface right now. But if that is done, we're going to move on to the next chapter of our presentation, which I came here to the slide, but actually is here. This is the last chapter now. It's 5 minutes to the hour, so it's not going to be a long discussion. Maybe this is something we need to take on for the next time. But what I can do, I think that I can discuss what do we want to do with this discussion for reports. And maybe before I start, I should go here, demo reports, reporting docs. So first, obviously, we have a lot of reports. We're not asking, it's not like we had no reports, but obviously the reports we had are those that were, requested the most. There is impact report, which is the one pager, this village board report. These are two really important reports. If you're not using them, or if you don't know about these reports, we really recommend you have a look at those, because it's kind of the smartest reports we do are these two ones. Now, there are other reports that you're probably using. Active members is a more kind of a spreadsheet file of all your active members on any given date. And you can, include there the address, socioeconomic stacks and stuff like that. You can have all these other reports about volunteer activity, on vacation, all archived. I mean, these reports. So this is okay. So now what we wanted to do now is that you're still doing some reports, and we heard back from some villages that spend time every month doing some reports that are not listed here that we would like to add. And I can show you an example of that. And this is what I wanted to do today, and we don't have time, but we can do next time, or in a different way. So basically, this is one example of a village that contacted us, and there's this report for that they need to report the unique individuals in a variety of capacities and aggregate number of unique individuals who received services. So basically, the village is receiving funding, either from a foundation or a donor, or public funding from government, or etc. But they need to report back these numbers, right? So if you have a situation similar to this, we would love to hear back from you. I mean, if you wanted to produce this report, you can do it, but you would need to produce the spreadsheet files first, and then rework on your spreadsheet files and stuff like that, and do that every month. It's not a lot of fun. So if you already have something like that, let us know, because we're thinking about adding this. For example, is one that we will add. This may already solve your problem. If it doesn't solve it, please give it some thought about a report that you spend time doing every month, and if we can help you get it done, we want to hear from you. Either you can get that on an email explaining how it would work, but basically we will be listening and asking our customers what other additional reports they need that we can help with. So so that's about it. Now maybe I have one more thing. This is one we're looking at here. Kind of this is the specific description of one report, and Christina has been working on this, which is we have the improvement ideas spreadsheet files that we use with ask.helpfulvillage.com. So she did a kind of a selection of the report. So we just that we'll be working this month on this list. So if some of these are yours, I know this kind of Jim, Annika. So these are requests that villages have made. So we are really, we're going to be seriously working on these reports right now, this upcoming month. So if you want to let us know, make precisions, or have a look at this field that is clear, and if we have questions, we'll come back to you. But basically what I'm saying is that this is a good moment for all villages. If you want to contact us about improvement ideas for reports, is exactly what we will be working on for this upcoming month. Okay, and that being said, is 59, so it's about time to close up for today's session. We didn't have, I'm sorry for those that were coming in for the discussion for report, just didn't have enough time. We were working on these other things, but there is another webinar next week on Wednesday. So the B2B webinar is a Q&A. Obviously, people that have questions about anything, they can submit their questions, send them to Gary, the email we showed before. And then if you don't have other specific questions, we can also discuss reports in that very same session. So yeah, basically this is a topic that is interesting. Here again is the Gary's email address for the webinar next week. Perfect. And that being said, is the exact time of the anticipated end time for the meeting. Just wanted to say that I'm super excited to be back. I had a wonderful vacation. And then maybe I have an overflow of energy. So if I'm being too intense today, just apologize for that. And I'll try to put all that energy coding some stuff.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you soon.
Bye.